Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between lush hills and flowing rivers in the heart of Africa, there lived a young woman named Amina. She had been married to a kind man, Kofi, for several years, and together they lived peacefully in their small thatched house. Their happiness was complete when Amina found herself pregnant, after many years of longing for a child. The couple was overjoyed, eagerly awaiting the arrival of their baby. However, there was one thing that cast a shadow over their joy. Kofi's first wife, Adama, had died many years ago. She had been a beautiful and strong woman, but after her passing, Kofi had married Amina. Even though Amina was kind-hearted, the village elders, still loyal to Adama's memory, often whispered that Amina could never truly replace her. Despite this, Amina's love for her husband was pure, and she poured all her heart into raising their family. But there was an undercurrent of jealousy in her heart towards the old woman, Adama's sister, who would often visit and criticize her, reminding her that she was just a young woman and could never truly take Adama's place. As Amina grew bigger with pregnancy, the village became excited, and everyone anticipated the arrival of the child. However, Adama's sister, still bitter and resentful of Amina, began to harbor evil thoughts. She was envious of the joy that Kofi and Amina shared and jealous of the new life that was about to come into the world. She believed that the newborn would take away the attention she believed was rightfully hers. Her wickedness festered, and she began to make dark plans for the newborn child, even though no one could have imagined the evil she was capable of. One rainy night, under the cover of darkness, Amina went into labor. The night was heavy with the sounds of rain and the distant howling of the wind. Amina, exhausted, gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, whose skin shimmered like the moonlight itself. Her hair was as dark as the midnight sky, and her eyes sparkled with an otherworldly glow, as if they were connected to something beyond this world. However, as the midwife placed the baby girl in Amina's arms, something strange happened. The air around them grew heavy, and Amina felt an unusual chill. A voice, like the whisper of the wind, seemed to beckon from far away, but Amina couldn't quite understand it. The baby's cry seemed to resonate with the very heart of nature itself. Amina felt a strange sense of unease, but she brushed it off as fatigue from the long labor. Adama's sister, who had secretly been watching the birth from the shadows, could no longer contain her anger. Her jealousy boiled over as she saw the joy that filled the room. She stormed in and demanded that Amina hand over the child, claiming that the baby would ruin everything. With an evil glint in her eyes, she took the baby from Amina, ignoring her pleas and cries. Amina could barely grasp what was happening as the wicked woman pushed her out of the hut and, with the baby clutched in her arms, ran toward the river. The river, which wound through the heart of the village, was known for its power and its mysterious depths. It was said to be blessed by the river goddess, a spirit of great strength and beauty who protected the waters and the lands around them. Yet, the villagers feared her power and rarely spoke of her, as they knew that to anger the river goddess was to risk great calamity. With the baby in her arms, Adama's sister reached the riverbank. The rushing waters seemed to whisper her name, as if the river itself could sense the evil intentions in her heart. Unbeknownst to the woman, the baby she held in her arms was not just an ordinary child. She was the daughter of the river goddess, born of the sacred waters, and the goddess had long awaited the birth of this child. Without a second thought, Adama's sister tossed the baby into the river, believing that her actions would rid the world of the child who had stolen her sister's place. As the baby sank beneath the surface, the river seemed to pause, holding its breath. The waters were still for a moment, and the forest around the river fell silent. But then, the river began to stir with great force. The waters churned and surged, and the wind howled in fury. Adama's sister screamed in terror as the river rose up, its waves growing higher and higher, as though the river itself were alive with rage. From the depths of the river emerged a figure, radiant and beautiful. The river goddess, her hair flowing like silver streams of water, rose from the waves. Her eyes, glowing with the power of the ancient waters, fixed upon Adama's sister with an intense, burning gaze. "You have thrown my daughter into the river, woman," the river goddess's voice echoed like the thunder that precedes a storm. "You have dared to harm the child of the waters. Now, you will face the consequences of your wickedness." Adama's sister, her heart gripped with fear, fell to her knees, pleading for mercy. But the river goddess, unyielding and powerful, did not show pity. She raised her hand, and the waters surged higher, sweeping Adama's sister into the river's depths. No trace of her was left behind, and the waters returned to their calm, as if nothing had happened. The river goddess turned her gaze to the child, who had somehow managed to survive the violent currents. The baby floated on the surface of the water, unharmed, as if the river itself had protected her. The goddess smiled, her face radiant with love and pride. She reached out and lifted the child from the water, cradling her in her arms as though she were the most precious treasure in the world. "You are my daughter," the river goddess said softly. "You are destined for greatness, and the waters will always protect you." With that, the goddess vanished back into the depths of the river, taking the child with her. The village, unaware of the child's miraculous survival, continued with their lives, never suspecting the great secret that had been hidden beneath the surface of the river. Years passed, and the village continued to thrive, but strange things began to happen. The villagers noticed that the crops grew stronger, the rains came at the right time, and the river flowed more peacefully than it ever had before. The villagers began to whisper that the river goddess was smiling upon them, though no one knew the true reason why. Meanwhile, deep beneath the river's surface, the child of the river goddess grew. She was named Asima, after the word for blessing in the ancient tongue of the people. She lived in harmony with the waters, learning the ways of the river and its creatures. The goddess taught her the ancient songs of the river and the power of the waters, and Asima's beauty grew with every passing year, just like the river itself. One day, when Asima was old enough, the river goddess called her to the surface. "It is time for you to return to the world above, my daughter," the goddess said. "Your time to bring blessings to the land has come. You are the daughter of the river, and your power will heal the land and its people." Asima, now a young woman, stepped out of the river with the grace of a gazelle. She was radiant, her skin glowing like the moonlight, and her hair flowed like the river's current. Her eyes sparkled with the wisdom of the river, and her heart was full of love for the world she had been born to heal. When she emerged from the water, the villagers who lived near the river saw her and were struck with awe. They recognized her as the child who had disappeared so many years ago, and they marveled at her beauty and grace. Asima's return brought peace and prosperity to the land. The crops flourished, the rains came at the right times, and the villagers began to thrive. They knew that the river goddess had sent her daughter to heal the land. But as the years went by, Amina, who had never forgotten her lost child, still grieved deeply. One day, after hearing rumors of a miraculous woman who had appeared by the river, she ventured there with her heart full of hope. As Amina approached the riverbank, she saw a figure standing by the water. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw the woman's radiant face and glowing eyes. It was her daughter, the child she had lost so many years ago. Amina rushed to embrace her, tears streaming down her face. "My daughter," she cried. "I thought I had lost you forever." Asima smiled warmly at her mother. "You have never lost me, mother. I have always been with you, even when you could not see me. The river goddess is my mother, but you gave me life, and that is a bond that nothing can break." And so, Amina and Asima were reunited, and together they brought great joy and prosperity to the village. The river goddess watched over them from the depths of the water, content in the knowledge that her daughter would always be loved and cherished by the people of the land. And the river, once again, flowed peacefully, as if singing a song of hope, love, and the enduring bond between mother and child. The daughter of the river goddess. Long ago, in the heart of a vast, sprawling land filled with verdant forests, rolling hills, and meandering rivers, there was a small village known as Akwati. The village, with its simple thatched huts, warm fires, and children's laughter, seemed to exist in perfect harmony with nature. At the edge of this village flowed the mighty river Ndam, its waters as old as time itself, winding through the land like a silver thread. It was believed by all that the river was sacred, for it was said to be the home of a powerful and mysterious being, the river goddess, known as Umoja. In this village lived a woman named Amina. She was beautiful, gentle, and kind-hearted. Her husband, Kofi, was a strong and hard-working man, beloved by the people. Together, they had built a modest but happy life. Amina had long yearned for a child, but after many years of trying and suffering the pain of many miscarriages, her hopes had begun to fade. It was then that the heavens finally answered her prayers, and she conceived a child. Amina's joy knew no bounds. She and Kofi began preparing for the arrival of the baby with great excitement. However, there was one dark cloud that loomed over their happiness: Kofi's first wife, Adama, who had passed away many years before. Though Adama was long gone, her presence still lingered in the village. The villagers spoke of her often, and her memory seemed to overshadow Amina, no matter how hard she tried. Kofi's mother, a stern old woman named Nana Efua, never quite accepted Amina, always comparing her to Adama. She believed that no one, especially Amina, could replace the beloved first wife. This feeling of rejection grew in Amina's heart, but she refused to let it diminish her happiness. As the months passed, Amina's belly grew, and her dreams of motherhood came closer. Yet, there was one who could not bear to see Amina so joyful, Adama's younger sister, Otelia. Otelia was a woman consumed by bitterness. She had never forgiven Kofi for marrying Amina, and her jealousy had only festered as she watched Amina's life blossom. Otelia's jealousy grew darker with each passing day, and one night, when the full moon bathed the earth in silver light, her evil plans came to fruition. The night Amina went into labor, the winds howled like wolves and the sky was thick with dark clouds. Amina, exhausted but filled with excitement, gave birth to a daughter. The child was unlike any other. Her skin shimmered as if kissed by the moon itself. Her hair was a cascade of midnight curls, and her eyes, deep and dark, glimmered with an almost supernatural light. The midwife placed the baby into Amina's arms, and she stared down at her child in awe. There was something ancient, something mysterious about this baby. Her cries echoed like a distant thunderstorm, as if the very forces of nature had come alive to welcome her. Yet, even in the midst of this miracle, there was a sudden chill in the air. Amina shivered, but she dismissed it as fatigue. What she did not know was that her daughter, born under the full moon, was no ordinary child. She was the daughter of the river goddess, Umoja, destined for greatness beyond mortal understanding. As Amina marveled at the baby, Otelia, filled with rage and jealousy, entered the hut. Her eyes burned with hatred. "This child," she hissed, "will destroy everything. She will steal the love of Kofi, and she will take the place of my beloved sister. She must not live." Amina, still dazed from childbirth, didn't understand the venom in Otelia's words. She clutched her baby tightly to her chest. But Otelia was relentless. She grabbed the infant from Amina's arms, pushing her aside as if she were nothing more than a shadow. "She doesn't belong here." Otelia screamed, her voice as cold as the wind outside. "This child will never survive." Before Amina could stop her, Otelia dashed out of the hut and ran toward the river, her dark heart filled with evil resolve. The night was heavy with the sound of rushing water as she approached the riverbank. The villagers had long whispered that the river was protected by Umoja, a goddess with powers beyond mortal comprehension. Yet Otelia cared not for such tales. Her jealousy had clouded her mind, and in her fury, she tossed the baby into the river, believing the child would drown and disappear forever. The river, however, was not as simple as Otelia had thought. The moment the child touched the water, the river seemed to awaken. The current swirled violently as if the river itself had felt the child's presence. Otelia screamed in terror, but the waters were swift, and she was pulled into the river, her cries lost in the roar of the churning water. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, all was still. The river became calm again, and the moonlight returned to its gentle glow. The water, now quiet and serene, held the child afloat, as if it had cradled her in its loving embrace. A soft whisper echoed through the forest, a sound like the rustling of leaves in the breeze, but this time, the voice was unmistakable. It was the voice of Umoja, the river goddess. "You are my daughter," the voice said. "The river will protect you, for you are one with the water, and I will watch over you always." The river goddess, knowing the child's fate had been sealed by mortal hands, took the baby deep into the sacred waters. There, in the heart of the river, beneath the shimmering surface, the child would grow. Years later, Asima's awakening. Years passed, and the village of Akwati continued its life as usual, though the river's waters seemed to be more generous than before. Crops grew bountifully, and the rains arrived just when they were needed. Yet the villagers knew not why these blessings had come. They only whispered that the river goddess was smiling upon them. Meanwhile, deep within the heart of the river, the child, now called Asima, grew. She was nurtured by the river itself, learning the ancient songs of the water, understanding the whispers of the wind, and knowing the secrets of the earth. Asima's beauty became legendary. Her hair flowed like the river's current, her skin glowed with the light of the moon, and her eyes sparkled with the wisdom of the ages. Umoja, her mother, saw that the time had come for Asima to return to the surface. "It is time, my daughter," Umoja said, her voice like a gentle breeze. "The people of the land need you. You are the daughter of the river, and you carry within you the power to heal and to bless. Go to the world above, and bring peace and prosperity." And so, Asima emerged from the river, stepping onto the earth as if she had been born anew. Her radiance shone like the sun breaking through the clouds. As she walked through the village, the people marveled at her, for they recognized her as the child of prophecy, the child who had vanished so many years ago. Word spread quickly, and Amina, now a woman older with sorrow etched into her face, heard the whispers of the miracle woman who had appeared by the river. Her heart fluttered with hope. Could this be her lost child, the daughter she had given up for dead? When Amina reached the riverbank, she saw the glowing figure of Asima standing there, her presence like the gentle kiss of dawn. Tears filled Amina's eyes as she gazed upon her child, who had grown into a woman of extraordinary beauty and power. "My daughter," Amina cried, "I thought I had lost you forever." Asima smiled gently, her eyes warm with understanding. "You have never lost me, mother," she said. "Though I was born of the river, I was always with you." The bond between mother and child cannot be broken by time or distance. The villagers, witnessing this reunion, rejoiced, for they knew that the river goddess had indeed blessed them. Amina and Asima embraced, and from that moment on, the village flourished. The river, once feared, was now revered as a symbol of life and abundance. Asima, the daughter of the river goddess, became a great healer. She taught the people how to live in harmony with nature, how to care for the land and the waters.